I never thought that 1 week could feel so heavy, so slow, and yet so fast at the same time. Last week, my grandmother passed away. Even now, I have trouble believing that she is gone forever. She had always been part of my life. She lived with us when I was younger, and she used to cook the most delicious meals, tell stories about her childhood, and sing old songs before bed. Her laugh was soft, her hands always warm, and she carried a peace that could calm any storm. Her passing left an empty silence in our house. My father cried quietly at night when he thought nobody could hear him. My mother sat for long hours, looking at old photographs. My younger siblings asked questions like, "Where is Grandma now? And can she see us?" And I just walked around feeling like I had lost something big inside my heart. The funeral was planned for the late afternoon. The week before the funeral was full of preparations. The adults discussed flowers, clothing, transportation, and traditions. Everyone seemed busy, but their movements were slow, gentle, respectful. It was as if every action needed to be done with care, because love for my grandmother was in every little detail. Our culture has different ways to say goodbye to someone who has died. Some families choose to bury their loved ones, while others choose cremation. Cremation, where the body is turned to ashes, is becoming more common these days because many people think it is more practical and easier. But my family chose to bury my grandmother. She had always loved the earth, gardening, planting flowers, watching trees grow. It felt right to return her to the ground she loved. The day of the funeral arrived with a cold, quiet morning. The sky was gray, as if it also felt sadness. Everyone wore black clothing. The house was full of people, relatives, neighbors, old friends. They hugged each other softly, whispered condolences, and spoke about Grandma with love. Round midday, we left for the church. The church was old, with tall stained glass windows that filled the inside with soft-colored light. At the front of the church was the coffin. It was made of dark polished wood and decorated beautifully with white lilies and green leaves. The flowers smelled sweet like spring, but the mood inside was heavy. I walked slowly toward the coffin. I was nervous to look, not knowing how I would feel, but the moment I saw her, I understood something. My grandmother looked peaceful, like she was simply resting. Her hands were folded gently on her chest. Her face carried no pain. She looked free, and that sight gave me a strange calmness. Even though my heart ached, people sat in silence, waiting for the ceremony to begin. The pastor walked in. He was an elderly man with kind eyes. He spoke in a gentle voice, telling the story of my grandmother's life, how she grew up in a small village, how she raised 4 children, how she worked hard, loved deeply, and always helped those in need. He spoke of her kindness, her patience, and her strong faith. As he spoke, I looked around the room. Many eyes were filled with tears. Some people cried quietly. Others stared down at their hands. Some closed their eyes, listening and remembering. Then came the moment of prayer. Everyone bowed their heads. I closed my eyes. I tried to send words to my grandmother, even if she could not hear them in the way she once did. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for every story, every hug, every warm meal, every moment. I hope you are safe now. I hope you are at peace. I will never forget you. When the ceremony ended, we all walked outside into the cool evening air. The sky was starting to turn orange and purple with the setting sun, as if the world was painting a beautiful goodbye. The coffin was lifted by 8 family members who served as bearers. My father was one of them. I saw his hands tremble slightly as he held the weight. The coffin was heavy, not only in weight but in meaning. It held the final presence of my grandmother, her body, her life's last physical form. Everyone followed, the bearers slowly. We walked in silence. Only the sound of footsteps and the slight breeze could be heard. We walked through the cemetery, past rows of gravestones, some old and worn, some new and shiny. Each stone represented a life, a story, a memory, and soon my grandmother would have her place here. We reached the burial site. The grave was already prepared, a deep rectangular hole in the ground. The coffin was placed beside it. The pastor spoke a few final words, short but meaningful. Then, the bearers slowly lowered the coffin into the grave using straps. That moment felt like time stopped. My mother began to cry openly now. My father stood very still, but I could see tears running down his face. My siblings held each other's hands tightly. It was time to say our last goodbye. One by one, we stepped forward. We each took a small handful of earth. I felt the dirt warm and rough in my hand, and with a deep breath, I let it fall onto the coffin below. The sound of the soil hitting the wood was soft but powerful. It was the sound of finality, the sound of goodbye. When the burial was finished, many of the family gathered for dinner at a small, quiet restaurant. The lights were warm, the chairs soft, and the atmosphere calm. We did not laugh loudly, nor did we cry loudly. We remembered her in gentle voices. We shared stories about Grandma, funny stories, sweet stories, stories filled with love. Someone remembered how she used to dance when she thought no one was watching. Another remembered how she would sneak extra cookies to the grandchildren. I remembered how she held my hand whenever I felt scared, and how her voice could make everything feel okay. The sadness was still there, but something else was there too. Gratitude. Gratitude that we had known her. Gratitude that she had loved us. Gratitude that we could keep her memory alive through our words, our actions, and the love she taught us. The next morning, the house was still quiet, but it felt a little different. The sadness was still heavy, but now it carried something peaceful. Grandma was gone, but her love stayed with us. I realized that love does not disappear with death. It remains in the heart forever. I looked at the garden outside her garden. The flowers she planted were still growing. The wind still touched the leaves. The sun still warmed the earth. Life continues, and in that continuation, so does she. I promised myself not to forget her stories, her songs, her wisdom, or her kindness. I promised to live in a way that would make her proud. I promised to carry her love forward, because even though she is gone, she is still with us. Sometimes loss feels unbearable, but when we remember with love, the pain slowly becomes something gentle. We do not lose the people we love. They live inside us, in our memories, in our actions, in our hearts. This is how we say goodbye, and this is how we continue.